Welcome to Waiting on the Trade, a monthly comics book club for people who can't keep up with monthly comics. I'm one of your hosts, Matt, the Last Riddler story, Ledger.
And I'm Patrick, the Crow, Fitzgerald Fleck.
In this Zero episode, we're going to explain what the show is all about, talk about our first 10 favorite comics, and tease what's coming up.
All right, Matt, why are we here?
Why are we here? To talk about either one trade paperback or one graphic novel each month. Talk about it book club style. We'll be inviting guest hosts on that are either friends of ours that are comic readers or friends of ours that aren't comic readers. For the most part, we're going to let them drive and pick books they're excited to talk about, which I think is going to be pretty neat because that will help you and I, Patrick, review
Branch
some of our
out.
comic blind spots. Yeah, I'm excited specifically to get into some manga that I haven't read before, which I know we're going to do.
Yeah, I haven't read any manga. I'm a big anime weeb, so I can, but yeah, I haven't read much
Can
manga.
you define weeb for those of us?
I think our listeners know what a weeb is.
I'm a potential listener. I don't know what a weeb is.
That's a lie. It's a
Is that
lie.
something I vape?
Do you vape? Oh my god, California has changed you. No, a weeb. I have a strong passion for anime. Anyways, yes, manga. I don't know if I've read any. Like, we read Death Note in college. At least you and Mike did. I don't know if I actually picked up a copy.
I've read all of Death Note at this point because my wife Kat got really into it and like wanted to buy all the books, so we bought the books. So I've read all of that. I've read Rurouni Kenshin. I've read a bunch of like Shonen Jump / Viz stuff, but I haven't really like gone outside of that. So I'm excited to do that.
Well, I've watched all those as anime, so
yeah, right.
I'm excited to see the print version.
And then Euro comics is a thing that I haven't been like.
How would you define Euro comics?
That's a toughie, actually. So like, some of the stuff that I think of based on other people I've interacted with is like Tintin and Moomin. Or specifically
like
things that like
comics?
So like one of our guest hosts that's coming on within the next few episodes, Cal, is a big Moomin fan, so I've got one book of Moomin stuff that he sent me at some point.
Moomin. Okay.
Moomin, Moomin, which we'll probably get to at some point, I would imagine. And then Tintin is something that another friend of mine, Andy, who we don't currently have slated, but maybe we'll be on at some point.
Come join us, Andy.
When he was a kid. Yeah.
Talk about Tintin.
And then I'm also like excited to revisit stuff that I've read before and really liked. So I was just talking with Kat about like maybe doing a volume of Calvin and Hobbes, which is like not maybe specifically what you would think of when you think of like people who are going to talk about comic books. Because
I've read all of Calvin and Hobbes.
I mean, I have read 90% but like those are some good comics, and I like those are comics that people don't talk about because people are always talking about like the superhero stuff that is the stuff I typically read.
See, if we're doing Calvin and Hobbes, like Far Side is equally good.
I'm down for some Far Side. You know, Far Side is to me like calendar comics because my grandma would buy me like she would buy me those calendars, like the tear off desk calendars that have like a Far Side comic on each page, basically.
One of my favorite Far Sides is it's a scientist and he's got like pickled creatures in the background and he's whistling to himself "When You Wish Upon the Star," and in the foreground it says "Field Cricket" and it's got Jiminy Cricket's like top hat floating on the formaldehyde and his little like feet with spats underneath the label. I love it. It's so dark and messed up. It makes me laugh every time.
So we're gonna do some Far Side. We're gonna do some Calvin and Hobbes. We are gonna do straight up bullshit superhero comics for sure, because like it's kind of my jam.
Speaking of, our first issue will be All-Star Superman, Volume 1 and 2.
Yeah, or volume all of it if you have that one. That's right. The thing about comics is like they're really esoteric and just like even the way they're released and packaged as trades.
It's true. It's been released as like a massive collection now, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been released as like two 6-issue collections, and then like also there have been different packages of like the whole story in one. So we're gonna do the whole story because I don't think there's any reason to split it up.
No, it makes sense.
And the reason we're doing trades or graphic novels or books as opposed to
who's got time for single issues? Am I right?
Time to read single issue comic books anymore. Do you, Pat?
I'm gonna be honest. I never had the time. Well, time. I never cared for single issues, so I don't know. It's something about paying for advertisements didn't really sit well with
So
me.
there are lots of like runs I reread because I have the single issues of them, and I like
Mhm.
remember the ads fondly, like from the '90s. Like I'll go back and
Well,
I'll
it's
read see like
nostalgic now, sure.
no, it totally is. It's like a Game Boy ad from the
Yeah,
90s or like a Gap ad from the 90s. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember that. And like, that's kind of cool. But like, there's also like those moments where the ads just like wreck something
take
for
the
you.
tension out. It's like, oh, what's gonna? Oh, it's an ad for Burger King. Great
So like, I'm really excited to explain like intricacies of weird like DC and Marvel
comics.
Comics bullshit to you.
Yeah, when I was looking up my JLA year one, it's like, oh yeah, this is pre-crisis. I'm like, what does that mean? And I looked
What
at it
is a
like,
pre-crisis?
oh, or I'm sorry,
Isn't
post-crisis, not pre-crisis. It's after the crisis of Infinite
yeah,
Earths.
it's the like new Crisis JLA origin story. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, I'm super pumped because we just finished our podcast project called Battlestar Bros, where we
Woo.
watched all of Battlestar Galactica all the way through and did episode commentary.
Which
And I
has its
was,
own idiosyncrasies to deal
yeah,
with.
well,
But
like you were the guy on that one, and I was the newbie, and now I'm going to be the guy, and you're going to be the newbie for at
that's
least
right.
like the bullshit superhero stuff. Some of the stuff's
For
going to
the
be outside
majority of it, yeah.
both of our wheelhouses. Yeah,
I hope so. I hope it gets weird.
that'll be fun. Yeah, but yeah, for like I think what our third real episode, we've got a friend of ours, Tyler, slated to come on, and we're definitely gonna do some Marvel Comics bullshit for that one. So that one, you will be the guy getting the explainers. I think Tyler and I will be the explainees.
I mean, Marvel I'm better with than DC, actually.
DC is more confusing, I think, overall, because like there's just
They
so
have so
much
many
more of it,
retcons.
and so yeah, so many stop starts.
Yeah. Do we want to just go into a quick background of where we're at with comics? Like what like molded us as young comic book readers?
Yeah. Do you want to go first, or should I go first?
I can go first, I guess, to explain the quote. So, one of the first comics that I ever read was The Crow, and that's only because my father kept a bookshelf in my bedroom growing up, and this trade paperback was on there. So it was only a matter of time before I reached up and took this incredibly violent emo trade paperback and read it as a child.
How old were you, do you think?
Oh, I had to have been like 11 or 12.
Because like I still haven't even read The Crow. Because I'm looking at it, and I'm like, it's too intense for me. It's
It's
too much.
intense. It's a story about a man and a woman that like fiance. They get attacked by a bunch of thugs. He gets knocked out. The woman gets like killed and raped. Maybe not like in that order. Like it's messed up. And he comes back from the dead for revenge. And he's dressed as a clown for reasons. It's dark. It's messed
Have
up.
you reread it since you read it the first time?
Yes, I've read it a couple times.
Okay. What did you think of it like the second or third time?
I mean, it's your stereotypical revenge like story. Like if you read it, you'll see influences in a lot of other like movies and stuff that came out in the 80s and 90s.
So like there is a Crow movie also, right?
Yes, there is a movie based on the graphic novel.
Is that any good?
Good might be stretching. It's okay. I mean,
Okay. All right.
it is
Like
what it
as a
is.
person who hasn't read The Crow before, would you tell me specifically, knowing my tastes, to read it?
I mean, I wouldn't have you go out of your way to read it. Like maybe next time you're in town, maybe I'll lend it to you, and then if you get around to it, maybe take a glance. But
Also, Pat, can I tell you, I looked up The Crow on Wikipedia. There are a
yeah,
lot of The Crows.
yeah, and that's another thing. I'm pretty sure I read like it is the original story.
I mean, that sounds right, because that sounds like the quote-unquote origin story, but like, there are a lot of The Crows. There's
No,
like
it was super
1, 2,
popular
3,
for a
4,
time.
5, 6, 7, maybe? Question mark? The Crows.
Yeah, lots of like new series. I think Image Comics had a run for a while.
Yeah, that one's listed really weirdly on here as publishing from February 1999 to November 1989.
Oh my god, it went back in time. That's how amazing The Crow is. That's one of my first like remembered delving into graphic novels. The other one, more stereotypical, is JLA Year One, like I was talking about, is one of the first
which is real good, but is a really weird, like, Buck Wild JLA origin story.
Yeah, I honestly couldn't tell you what the actual like story was. I think it was just individual like things happening over the course of the year, like the first year of the JLA forming, right?
Yeah, they like end up fighting basically like an alien invasion by the end of it.
Yeah. I remember Gorilla Grodd's in there, and then I can't remember the villain who's just a brain and like
I think
a Dalek.
it's the Brain and Monsieur Mala are in there, which is super weird also. But
oh yeah, it's not Gorilla Grodd. That's right.
Yeah.
See, it's been a while. But I really liked that one, and I thought it was cool that it was the origin of the JLA, because I love Martian Manhunter. I really grew to love Green Lantern. Aquaman has had a very like dear place in my heart for whatever reason, just because he's been like shit on so much.
Did you see the movie?
No, and I refuse to. I will not watch that movie.
That's my take on it also, actually, which we could have Mike on at some point to refute. Mike, our former Battlestar Bros co-host.
I did go see Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which is fucking amazing.
Yes, I'm really glad you said that, because we would have had to cancel the podcast if you said anything
It's the
else.
best Spider-Man film I've ever seen.
It might be the best comic book movie.
It's amazing.
Yeah, so that's kind of the takes we have on this show, by the way. Like, if you want to get a sense of who we are and what we're into, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse was the goddamn
top
best.
notch. It's real good.
Pat, I bought the soundtrack. I've been like listening to that for the past 2 months to the point where Kat's tired of it. She's sick of it.
The animation is just genius. I've never seen anything like it. So
if it's
good.
not the best comic book movie, it's definitely the most comic book movie for sure.
Did it come out in 3D? We didn't see it in 3D, but
there
I
was
can't
a 3D
imagine.
version. I don't want to see it in 3D.
It was trippy as is.
Yeah.
I think my dad leaned over and said, "Was this supposed to be in 3D?" Because all like the weird like textures and everything they have going on. I was like, I don't think this is in 3D.
No, it's just
supposed
a
to
goddamn
look.
comic book.
It's so good. But yeah, anyways, JLA Year 1. Really good. Aquaman's great. I really like the fact that Wonder Woman's not even in it.
Okay, so here's the deal. Like, none of the big three are in it. And
No, Batman and Superman have appearances, but they're not like majorly in the story.
It's part of like the way Crisis worked. They wanted to like keep
Step
everyone
back.
sort of separate. Yeah, like the post-Crisis Justice League was like a bunch of B-listers and Batman and Martian Manhunter basically, which like Martian Manhunter you can count as a B-lister and A-lister. I count as an A-lister. I think you probably do
Martian
too.
Manhunter's great. I love him. John Jones. Okay. A movie where John Jones is played by Idris Elba needs to happen. Like, that has to happen.
I'm into that. Let's do it.
Let's
call Warner Brothers. There's a miniseries coming out right now that the first issue was good, so we'll definitely have to get to that.
Martian Manhunter, really cool. And yeah, Black Canary, which at that point I had no idea who she was. She's pretty cool. She's pretty badass in that. So.
Yeah, she's like top 20 DC characters probably. At least DC heroes. Depends on if you're counting villains. But
all right,
yeah, those are good picks. Should we do The Crow at some point?
No.
Okay.
It can just stay in the 80s where it belongs.
Okay. I'm looking at this poster and I've got like Jared Leto, Suicide Squad, Joker.
No, if they like redid it now, it would be very popular. But I don't want them to.
All right. So do you want to talk about your favorite comics, or should I talk about my like?
I think you should now do your formative stuff.
So there are like 3 single issues of comics that I always think of as like my first comics, and I never have actually like ordered them out before, but I looked them all up so I could get the release dates right. So I think I'm gonna work backwards to get to the actual first one.
Unlike me, you didn't stumble upon your first one. You actually sought out. Before
we started recording, you asked me, how did you even find comic books?
Yeah.
Which is like a legitimate question back in like
honestly, my introduction to like superheroes and stuff is movies and video games. Like Sega Genesis had the Maximum Carnage Spider-Man games.
Yeah.
And like there's the X-Men Clone Wars game or something like that. That's my introduction. Like Enter Electro for PlayStation 1.
That was a good game, by the way.
It was real good. But that's where I came into superheroes, and then comics came after.
So I definitely was like watching Batman the Animated Series and like the X-Men one to a lesser extent. Like Batman
Hmm.
the Animated Series is like formative to me, whereas X-Men is fine, whatever, I'll watch it. Before I like found these comics, but as a result of my mom being a pharmacist, she worked in like drugstores, and like
Sure.
drugstores used to, I don't think they do anymore, carried like individual comics, but it was kind of hit or miss like what you would get. So like you might get this issue of Batman Adventures, but you might not get the next one. Like I definitely bought the first issue of Nightwing from one of my mom's like pharmacies she worked at, and like
Hmm.
specifically got that in, I think, for me at some point. Like at some point they were just getting it so I could keep getting it. Like that's how I followed the 90s Nightwing run, was like picking up each issue from the drugstore my mom worked at. So that's where I got most of them. The first one actually though is something that I found when we took my dad to the Milwaukee airport. So this would be October of 1994. This is one of the three like comics I think of when I think of like my first comics.
Sure.
It's Web of Spider-Man number 119, part 3 of 4 of The Exile Returns. And
Yes.
it's the goddamn Scarlet Spider versus Venom. And it's basically the story where they're trying to like put the Scarlet Spider over, like make him a big deal that the audience is going to root for. And in order to do that, they're like, who's like the most
Put
badass?
him up against
Like,
Venom.
yeah, like the guy that Spider-Man basically like can't beat.
Can't handle.
Yeah, like we'll give it Venom and he'll take him down. And like it totally worked because I
Well, like,
love the Scarlet Spider.
Scarlet Spider's costume alone is enough to beat Venom. I mean, come on.
It's really good. And like I made that for Halloween one year and it is pretty boss. Like it's a wonderful
so
costume.
90s. It's amazing. It's
I love
so
it.
good.
Ben Reilly is my boy. So that's one of them. That's number one. And that's, like I said, October 1994. So working backwards.
Okay.
The other comic I remember, and I remember it mostly because like the first page of it is Batman just like epically fucked up because in the previous issue of Nightfall, this storyline that was running through Batman at the time, Bane had just broken Bruce's back.
I saw that movie, yeah.
Yeah, basically. So the opening page of this comic, which I am reading after having watched Batman the Animated Series, where like nothing really bad happens. Like
There's some weird Clayface episodes, but that's about it.
But like nothing really bad happens in like Batman the Animated Series, right? The opening splash page of this issue of Batman, which is Batman 498 in like August of 1993, it looks like.
Sure.
Is Robin and Alfred, like Alfred dressed in like medic gear and Robin like in his costume with his mask off, like
Huddled over the broken corpse.
No, they're carrying him up the like the Batcave steps in a stretcher. He's just like laid out in a stretcher and like breathing through a tube and like completely like isolated. And you're like, what the hell happened? Because I hadn't actually gotten the issue where he like his back was broken. I just got this issue because this is the one that came into the drugstore, and I was like, what happened?
It's another thing with issues. You can just pick up random like middle
This
issues
is
that
part of why we're doing the trades. Yeah, we're gonna get the whole story and talk about it and review it and book club it. And I'm definitely gonna include links to like each of these things in like the show notes on mattreadscomics.com, because like this cover has like, there was a specific artist doing covers at that time named Kelly Jones who like has done a bunch of actual Batman issues, but like he's known for just like epically long bat ears and also like big hulking muscle bodies, and like his Bane is just like monstrous on the cover of this thing. So like that's number 2. And the third one, the last one, which is like the one that published the like the furthest in the past, so it was probably my first formative comic, is the last Riddler story in Batman Adventures number 10, which is a story where the Riddler actually gets to win, and it's brilliant because like the Riddler gets to win, but also Batman isn't dumb. He's just like too preoccupied to even care about the Riddler, basically. So he just like doesn't answer the Riddler's riddle. He probably could have if he had the time, but he's too busy. So like the Riddler is like, oh, Batman, stop me. Because Batman does get there, but basically just like through happenstance. But then Batman admits like, yeah, I was just here because I happened to be here. I definitely didn't answer your riddle.
So was it a complete single issue story? Like
Yeah, all those Batman adventure stories are, which is what makes them awesome. And like they're a great entry point for comics because they like come right off the animated series. It's all like the animated series art style and characters and stuff.
Hey, you know, The Crow's not bad either. So
Apparently it worked. I don't think if I read The Crow, I'd still be writing comics. But that's just me.
It's fine. It's fine.
But yeah, apparently that is June of 1993. So I was born in 1989. So 4 years old reading comics ish. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, you know.
I do have single issues. You said I only have 12. I do.
So
I vividly remember going to Goodwill and buying 10 for $1 out of their Goodwill bin. I didn't actually go to a comic book store because I don't know if at that time I knew such things existed.
We didn't really have one. Like, so you and I are from the same town growing up.
Yes.
Like, we didn't really have one near us that I knew about until, like, probably
Kryptonite?
8th grade. Yeah, in Janesville, which is, like, 45 minutes from us in Elkhorn, Wisconsin. There's a comic store, but like that's a trip. Like that's 40 like half hour, 45 minutes to get there. And like I don't know about your parents, but mine aren't taking me to the comic store just to go buy comics.
But yeah, the Goodwill in the town over had a comic bin that periodically would just like take comics, get rid of them. So I have a whole bunch of like Spider-Man and X-Men. And do I remember much of the stories? No, I don't, but I still have them somewhere, so that's what counts.
See, by the time I knew you were reading comics, you definitely weren't reading the like superhero single issues stuff. You were definitely more of like a high end trade paperback sort of man. Like by then, like we were, I think, both starting to get into like your Sandmans and all that.
Yeah, the Sandman was really big. Yes, Neil Gaiman's Sandman was huge when we were in college, and we were having fun collecting and reading all those.
Yeah, and then you started to get on that Frank Quitely train, which is part of the reason we're doing All-Star Superman for the first episode.
Grant Morrison, Frank Quitely, they're just a perfect duo. When he doesn't jump forward 500 years in the future at the end of your story that you're looking forward to. If he doesn't do that, it's great. Perfect.
I'm really excited, like, at some point, because Cal's a big Grant Morrison person, like you, me, and Cal talking a big Grant Morrison comic is going to be sweet. We just have to figure out which one it is and then do it because it's going to be fun.
New X-Men is like probably one of my favorites. Like you asked if you had to choose a series to take, like you're stranded on a desert island, which series would you pick? Sandman is probably up there just because it's so involved in like all the little like nuanced stories.
There's a lot you can pick out of that even when you like come back to it.
Yeah, there's a lot to it.
Like I recently reread that and I was like, oh, this bit. I didn't catch that the first time I came through.
But New X-Men's probably up there too, just because how badass that story is. To a point. I'll probably leave off the last volume.
Yeah, so I guess since we're kind of in it already, like, what are your favorite comics? And then, like, what are, like, I think you kind of answered this one, so if you want to bow out, go ahead. But, like, what comic or comics would you, like, if you had to give up all but, like, 2 or 3 comics, like,
exactly,
you'd keep those ones?
Yeah, I think those two would be Sandman and the Grant Morrison, Frank Quitely, New X-Men.
Yeah. I think I would definitely keep a Grant Morrison series also. I think I would keep his JLA over New X-Men because I'm a DC Comics boy.
That's the one where there's like new gods or something, right? I'm trying to remember the JLA story.
No, so like it's a big run. It's like a big run from the 90s. I'm gonna see. Like I know it's the 90s, but I don't know exactly what year it started.
Because I think you had me buy the first like trade of that.
Yeah, I think either I had you buy it or I gifted you it.
One of those things.
So 1997. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I would keep that because like that's got like all your faves. It's got Super Master Planner Batman. It's got I'm Wrestling Angels Superman. It's got Kyle, I'm the best damn Green Lantern because I'm an artist. Rayner.
I'm a Hal Jordan fan myself, but
I mean you're wrong. That's fine. It's fine. So I think I would keep Grant Morrison JLA because that's just like like some of the most epic superhero comics. I was thinking about it. I think I would pick like Harka Vagrant and bring it with me, which I don't know if you've read that ever. It's a webcomic originally.
Oh, really? Oh, webcomics. We didn't even talk about that.
That's the thing. Like, it also feeds into the fact that, like, I'm kind of short on, like, webcomics. You might even be like...
The only one that I'm really into is Kill 6 Billion Demons, which for the life of me, I can't get you to actually give a chance.
Well, they released it... They released it in a trade paperback, so we can talk about it.
I think there's a couple of them now, so yeah, check it out. It's real good. I'm sorry, what was yours? Hark something or other?
Hark a Vagrant, which is also in like hardcover books. I just had one from the library actually recently, but it's Kate Beaton. Yeah, Kate Beaton, and she just does like really like quick, fun, like humorous stuff. A lot of them are historical or like based on like novels and stuff. She
Oh,
really
nice.
likes the Bronte sisters, which is cool because
Someone's got to, I guess.
I mean, there are other people in my household that like the Brontes, so it's nice to be able to bond over that. Personally, not a huge Jane Eyre fan, but what are you gonna do?
Nope, but that's okay.
But yeah, so I think I would bring that just because like those are fun, and there's like little intricacies to them and footnotes that I think you could keep coming back to and reread, and they're still funny. So I think I would bring that with me.
Sure.
Man, though, like the world of webcomics, I'm so far amiss of, and we should fix that as part of this. Also, have you ever heard of a webcomic called Achewood?
I don't believe so.
Apparently it's really good. I cannot for the life of me get into it. We should try to maybe as part of this. Although that one's not published in like actual like volumes, so I'm not sure how we would make that happen. Anyways, there are lots of comics out there. Did you know?
There are a lot.
So we're going to release monthly. So we'll talk about at least 12 comics a year.
And we might do more depending on
If we get a good response and have the time, we might
do.
do
You
more.
listeners.
It's up to the listeners, and it's also up to my lack of ability to stop doing side projects.
It's fine. You're just running 2 blog sites, writing for another online comic site, doing self-publishing.
I was going to say I published a book.
You'll have time.
It's all good. I'm sure it'll be fine. But yeah, I like the monthly schedule for now. It'll be good. It'll be a good, like, low-key, non-stressful, chill session with our friends to do, like, 1 trade paperback's worth of a comic book club per month. And that's what I want to get out of this mostly, as opposed, like, in addition to talking about books I already really love and books that I haven't read yet.
Yeah, I'm pumped for both. Like, I'm really excited to do new things, but, like, to experience books that I loved with people I enjoy. It's great.
I don't know if you and I have ever actually like talked that deeply about All-Star Superman, actually, like as a teaser for the next episode.
I'm sure we both said, wow, this is amazing, but like not any more depth than that.
I'm coming up on my like favorite chapter of it, which is the like the Clark goes to interview Lex in prison chapter. Like I think
the quip when Lex doesn't understand shorthand is amazing.
It's pretty good. And when he has to draw on his eyebrow that he's missing, it's so good. So I'm excited to talk about that one, especially because, like, I know you love that Frank Quitely. I know you love him a lot.
He, like, when I first saw Frank Quitely's characters, they're strangely detailed, like the creases and skins, and, like, they look overly detailed, but it's grown on me. The man just knows how to draw with such depth. It's great.
I think we were like always gonna do a Morrison Quitely one as the first episode. Like we talked about other things, but like I think between the two of us, that just like trips both of our triggers to the point where like that's what we were gonna do. And I think both of us would rather do something that's like slightly less accessible. Like I think
it is. It's Superman, so yeah, you can't go wrong.
Well, like I think you wanted to do New X-Men, and I think that would have been a good choice. But like there are weird like edges of it that like
Cassandra Nova is a trip.
Yeah. And like I probably would have rather done like their Batman and Robin story, but like that also has like you got to know
I completely forgot about that.
Traveling through time. That's super good. It's got those like sound effects that Quitely draws into the panels, like 1960s show style. Oh, they're super good. But like All-Star I think is the most accessible one, so it's the best first episode.
And I think it's the only like standalone Superman I've ever read. Like it's the only Superman I know outside of JLA.
It is like quote unquote the only Superman you need, I think.
Right?
Like, if I was gonna be like, if someone was like, "Hey, Superman," like I'm not sure where to start with that guy. So like skipping ahead maybe too much. Like the weird thing about All-Star is that like there's so much like intricacy and history called forward through it that like if you get that, that's super cool. But at the same time, like Superman makes miniature suns on an anvil and feeds them to a miniature sun eater. That's great. Like you don't need to know anything. It's comics, baby.
So good.
So I think the last thing I wanted to do was make sure that if the audience listening to this has books that they want us and our friends to read as we rotate co-hosts in here, they let us know either via the blog or Twitter or whatever. You can find me at mattreadscomics.com or as at mattledge, MAT_LEDGE on Twitter. If you want to give me suggestions. Pat, where can the listeners find you?
I can be found at the Hypnotoad, but spelled the awesome way, which is TH3HYPN0TOAD on Twitter.
We gotta get you an easier handle, man.
No.
I'm gonna link up both of the blog posts, but
No.
we gotta get you some accessibility.
It's leet speak.
We gotta get you some accessibility. You can also email the podcast at waitingonthetrade@gmail.com.
There you go. That's a concise way to
Which is
contact
pretty
us.
easy. That will forward to my personal Gmail. Hint, hint, hint. Don't spam me.
Go ahead and spam them. It'll be great.
Please spam me, whatever.
But no, please widen our horizons, because I have a feeling we are limited in a way that we don't even understand yet. So
yeah, and like part of the reason I think like I would be excited to do more than one per month is like I want to read more books.
Yeah. It's been a while for me to jump into comics, so I'm ready. I'm ready for this thing.
All right, cool. I think that's the 0 episode. So listeners, feel free to join us next time when we talk about All-Star Superman.
It's going to be great.